Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Every Wednesday I'm going to be posting a new mystery video, so make sure to catch up here and subscribe to my channel. Set the mood, get comfortable, because we're going to have a chat about these mysteries. This is my mystery hat, so do enjoy. Take a gander. It's lovely. I love it. It's perfect for winter, which is coming up. Alright, let's just get on into it. The first mystery we have is called the Dyatlov Pass, and it is my absolute favorite mystery. I cannot stress how much I've researched this. I am so interested in it. It is just so bizarre to me. This incident is called the Dyatlov Pass because of the leader of the group. His name was Igor Dyatlov. He led 9 other hikers into the mountains. The thing is, one of the hikers fell sick before the hike could begin. They had already trekked up their way to the little village, but then he got sick and he couldn't make it. So he didn't come. So instead of 10 hikers on the trip, only 9 went. Little did that hiker know he would be the only survivor of his friends. So 9 hikers went into the mountains to enjoy, I think it was about a 2-week hike, and they were supposed to arrive back in the beginning of January, and I think around January 7th, the people that they said they would arrive, like their friends, and they said we were going to be back here around January 7th or January 8th. Around that time, the people they had talked to realized that they weren't there yet, and something must have gone wrong, but they figured they'd give it a few days, maybe they were just running a little bit late. Anyway, it wasn't until a few days later that they decided to go start searching for them, and what they found was crazy. The 9 hikers had started their trip and were fine for a few days, but then they went a little bit off course and decided to set up their tent on the side of a mountain, which is not usually where they would set up their tents, especially considering there was a forest with shelter quite nearby. But they set up their tent on the side of the mountain, and not literally a side, but it was just kind of sloping. There are pictures, documents, and diary entries from a few of the hikers before it all went wrong. All these hikers were not inexperienced. They were professional skiers. They constantly did this. They lived in this atmosphere. They lived in Russia. They were used to the snow. They were used to hiking. They weren't just random people who decided to go on a hike. They were all experienced, so it was figured that they would all come back alive. They did find the tent where they had camped. The tent had all of their clothes, all of their belongings inside of it, and it was cut open from the inside. So something must have happened to where these hikers needed to get out of their tent. Something was inside, or, no one knows exactly what happened, and I'll get to the theories later, but something happened so that the hikers cut open their tent and left. And then the 9 bodies were found in a total of about 6 months, I believe. It was really hard to find all of them. The snow had to melt before some of their bodies were found because they were buried underneath snow over time. They were like nowhere close to the tent. Some of them didn't have any clothes, and they were all in different areas. But it looked like the hikers who had lived the longest took the clothes from the ones that died quickest so that they would be warmest. A reason for the fact that they didn't have clothes is when victims are undergoing hypothermia, at the end stages, they will believe they are burning up. They are so hot and they will take off their clothes, which is probably why some of them only were wearing their underwear. I love tea. After a few months, the investigation was closed, and it was stated that the hikers died from a compelling natural force. No explanation, and a lot of them had huge pressure on their bodies that was the force of getting hit by a car. Obviously, there were no cars up there, so some people are thinking avalanche, but there were no signs of an avalanche either. There was no sign of struggle except for the injuries that some of the hikers had. It was just said that they died from hypothermia and being in the cold and bad decisions that were mostly Igor Dyatlov's fault. The night that they died, there was a snowstorm, so that could have greatly contributed to their death, especially since they weren't in their tent and they weren't in safety when it happened. None of the hikers were together. So what happened was, I think like 500 meters away from the tent, there was one hiker who died. Then 300 meters away from him, there were 2 hikers underneath a tree who died. And then, 500 meters away from him into the forest, there were like 3 bunched together. A lot of them died in numbers. So like there was one here, and then there were two under the tree here, and then there was one over here, and these are hundreds of meters apart, but they all look like they were trying to go toward, other than the ones in the ravine, they all look like they were trying to go toward the tent. I don't know, they were all separated. I'll put a map up on the screen. 2 of the hikers died separately, and 3 or 4 of the hikers were found later in a ravine. Those were the hardest to find. Their bodies were covered under so much snow that it took months to find them. It was said that 6 of the hikers died from hypothermia, and 3 of them died from injuries. A lot of their injuries were really weird. Now, one of the hikers was missing a tongue. One of them had a major head injury. There were 2 hikers that were found underneath a tree. Their nails were clawed from climbing the tree, it looked like, and also their hands were burned. There were remains of a fire underneath the tree, but it looked like they were the first ones to die. One of them had a major skull fracture, one of them had a minor skull fracture, one of them had broken ribs. So all these injuries, we don't know what happened. We don't have any pictures, we don't have any diary entries, we have no idea what happened to these people, but the case was just dismissed, and it wasn't even released to the public until years and years later, because the government didn't want to release it. So the files only became available in the 1990s because they were classified due to the fact that there was no suspect. They had no prime suspect for what happened, and the case was closed with no suspect. So they just classified it and they put it in the government, and they didn't release it until the 1990s. They were released after the Soviet Union, and a lot of the documents were missing, which is kind of common. Russia is a communist country, so they don't like to keep things very accessible. They aren't as open as the US, and they are known for hiding a few things in the government, so it is not super uncommon to have documents missing from a case file. Because of this, though, that leads into the theories. One of the theories is that the government did this. The government came in and somehow killed all these people because they found something, and that is why the radiation's on their clothes, because it was some secret government. Maybe they found, I think the theory was that they found a secret government organization, and so they just killed them all and covered it up and hid it. Another theory is the abominable snowman. I don't really believe that, but I guess you never know. You never know until you see it, but it has not been documented, so I don't believe it. Another theory is UFOs, which also might explain the radiation. I don't know, I don't believe that one either. But there were cases of someone seeing weird lights in the sky around the same nights that the hikers died and were on that hike. So that's why that theory has been put into place. Okay. Another theory is that there's a picture of them. I'll pop it up on the screen. It has their tent and their cooking system, which was, they had like a grill inside and a pipe that would take all the fumes from the grill and the smoke and would go outside. So they had this cooking system that was never tried before. It was something that the hikers had made, and the theory is that the smoke, they closed the pipe, or because they didn't want air to get in, and they did it, but there were still embers on the grill, and this caused smoke to come into the tent, and everyone started freaking out. And there was probably some smoke inhalation, but this also explains why they would cut the tent open, because they were in such a rush to get out. And so they ran out of there without their clothes, without their shoes, and they were just concerned about surviving. And then they didn't realize what they had gone into because it was the middle of a snowstorm. And then bam, everyone's lost and dies from hypothermia. I think this one is the most likely because it just makes a lot of sense. For me, there's no other main reason why the campers would cut their tent open, so I think that this one is definitely the most likely one for them to do that. Another theory is the Mansi people. They are native to that region. They're like the Native Americans of America, except it's in Russia. So the Mansi people are known to trek through that area, that region, and so the theory is that they killed them. The Mansi people saw them, they didn't help them, they killed them, they led them into traps, something like that. But the Mansi people are normally very kind. They don't attack people. They only live off the land. So this theory, I don't like this theory because this puts the blame on a group of people who don't deserve the blame. So if you are interested, you can do your own research. Tell me if I missed anything. I really love this case. And there's a movie about it, but the movie's not super accurate. It's called The Devil's Pass, I believe, and it's about these students who go to research the Dyatlov Pass. And they all end up dying. Of course, it's a horror movie. But that might also touch on some things that was not talked about in this video. So if you see anything that I didn't talk about, or if I just totally got something wrong, then do tell me. I would love to know. Thank you for watching.